Before we get into this episode, I just want to let y'all know it's sponsored by Prize Picks. Shout out Prize Picks.
What is up, hotties? Welcome back to another episode of Stay Hot. I'm Blaiden, joined as always by my two favorite co-hosts of all time, Matthew Sponhour and Theo Ash. And today, we're talking about NFL draft prospects, more specifically, quarterbacks, our top 5 coming into the NFL draft. Of course, there's the big names, Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels. Will any of us have McCarthy? Will it be Penix? Will it be Bo Nix? The world will find out shortly. But before we get into that, Matt, Theo, how are you guys doing on this beautiful Sunday afternoon?
I'm doing well. I was watching some of the All-Star Skills competition from my couch. Matt, I know you were there in person. Did you?
I have the travel story today, actually.
Oh,
it's me this time.
Go.
I went to the Rising Stars Challenge, largely because it's, within 2 hours, and I really wanted to see Wembanyama, right? He's a bucket list guy, I feel like.
Yeah.
When we left from Cincinnati to Indianapolis, and it just started to snow, and it came down so bad that what is usually a little bit under a 2-hour drive took 4.5 hours. We were going like 25 miles an hour the entire way there, man. And
oh, man.
I probably saw more crashed cars than I've ever seen in my life, dude. It was really, really bizarre. But it didn't start getting bad enough until we got like so close where it's like turning around doesn't make any sense. And the roads were better by the time we left. So it was a weird situation to be in. We were late. We did get to see Wembanyama play. He did have a very cool lob thrown to him where he caught it at like the high point of it and then brought it down in one fluid motion. But on top, it was fun to go to, but it was a heck of a trip. And also somebody hit my car.
Midwest snow that came in. Oh, really?
Not
was
completely
this due
unrelated.
to the weather or
no? I just came out to my car
was this
and just
that picture.
Yeah.
Was that the picture you sent us, Matt? Oh, shit. I thought you meant while it was snowing. No, the Midwest snow that came through was really bizarre. It kind of just came out of nowhere. I went to a flag football game and same thing. There were just cars in ditches everywhere. It was very post-apocalyptic.
It was pretty rough. One thing I really hate is when people are like, oh, well, you guys just don't know how to drive in snow. I think the reason why people in the North are so much better at driving in the snow, maybe because they know a little bit more, but also because there's just like more facilities to deal with it. Like if it snows in the South, they just don't have like the trucks or the plows or like the salt that they do up here. Cause we were driving there and it's like, there's like not much you can do other than just go incredibly slow. That's your only option. That's the only thing you can do is just leave a lot of space and just take your time and not rush. But I don't know.
I do think that there's the reaction that you have to learn to sliding, like, and just the general panic level that you're at is different when you're used to it. Like when I went down to Flagstaff, obviously we had an incredibly snowy winter last year, and I was around people who had never been in the snow before because a lot of people at NAU are from Southern California and Phoenix. And I think that there's a certain panic level, like not knowing what to do when things are sliding, and which causes maybe people who've never done it to just pull off into the ditch and just like not even do anything. And, you just see them there. Or they just don't have the cars for it at all. Like if you are from the South, the concept of 4-wheel drive has probably never crossed your mind. And it's just like a more expensive option for your car.
I think that's it more than anything is just like the lack of a necessity for that kind of a car.
I think people in the South have a 4-wheel drive for other non-snow related reasons, but I do have the take that it does make your car safer having 4-wheel drive. However, the people who have 4-wheel drive think this and then go faster to the point where it's about as equally safe. It's like, okay, if you were 25, you'd have a 0% chance of hydroplaning. So I'm going to go 35. And then, you're right back where we are, just getting there a little bit faster, I guess.
Yeah. If you're on a flat highway in the Midwest, 2-wheel and 4-wheel is probably about the same. But if you start dealing with like hills and shit,
it's true.
Like a mountain,
I know.
Then the 2-wheel
like
drive really like doesn't have the torque to go
Right.
up. Or if like we had in Flagstaff last year, a big hill leading to our apartment complex. You had to make kind of a steep initial climb that wasn't very far, but it was steep. And so many cars just like couldn't even make it up that. And like once you were on the normal roads, you'd probably be fine. But just like making it up steep driveways or hills becomes like impossible.
Another thing that doesn't get talked about enough, like it's important to like 4-wheel drive's important. Having good tires is important. You need a heavy car. Heavy cars make so much of a difference. Like the car that I'm driving now is like it's like a smaller SUV. Like it's a 5-seater. It has a hatch, but I wouldn't consider it an SUV to the extent that Matt knows that Denali that I used to drive, that car was a tank. It was massive. It fit 8 people. It was the extra long. It was an insane beast with snow tires, with 4-wheel drive. It just doesn't move. It's just like you get going. It's like nothing's throwing that off the road.
Right. You get in a small car and it gets like blown around by the wind on some of
that's
these winter days. But let's get into the quarterbacks here. We've had enough of a discussion about the techniques of driving in the snow. Matt, I'm sorry.
Let's get into the technique of throwing.
Yeah, let's get into the throwing technique. Do we want to go 5-1 or 1-5?
I think 1-5.
Let's do 1-5.
Yeah,
so
that makes the most sense.
QB1, I think that people who have listened to this podcast before know that we have a tier of 2 that are being considered for this prestigious honor. I've been on record before saying that it's Caleb for me. How about you guys?
Are you staying with Caleb?
Yeah, I stick with Caleb.
Okay.
I'm also Caleb. I've decided May is really good. He's a really, really strong prospect. He would be a no problem number 1 guy. But I do think Caleb's like level of what he does outside of the pocket and the arm angles. It's tough because May can do a lot of that stuff too. His top throws are up there with anybody's, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think we've seen how much Williams can get done in that out of the pocket stuff. And I think if May was like really, really good at like avoiding sacks, or he was a little bit more consistent, or he wasn't, he didn't throw quite as many turnover worthy plays, which is all of those things. Like, it's not the end of the world. Like, I think they fall under the umbrella of like him being super aggressive. But those are some of the knocks that I also have on Caleb. Like, he didn't do a great, like he did take a decent number of sacks this year. Not terrible though. Not to the point where I'm really concerned. And, Caleb has some throws in there that are, a little bit too dangerous. If May was going to top him, I think it would largely be because he didn't have that in him. But he does. So I've got Caleb at 1.
Yeah, I think Caleb is a slightly more unique athlete. I think there's an argument that maybe May is, he's taller. I think maybe could probably throw it maybe farther. I don't know though. Caleb's got a pretty crazy arm.
Caleb's arm to me is pretty next level. The thing that almost separated and almost made me put May above Williams was I feel like May's feel and his calmness under pressure is better. That is the only thing where I'm like, even though like the sacks don't quite line up, I feel like when Drake May takes a sack, it's because he's too locked in on one guy and he's like, I am making this throw no matter what. And then he'll try and buy a little bit of time, and then he'll make a bad throw as he gets hit, or it's not quite as open as he thought it was going to be. But his feel for like evading and maneuvering pockets is just so pristine. But again, it was just like, I'm like, well, he gets locked into these throws a little bit too much. And then Caleb is just such a different athlete. And when he releases that ball, it looks different.
Yeah, And it's not it's the release that looks different. I don't know if anybody quite hits the range of stuff that he does with his arm. I mean, if he needs to kind of jump almost back and like bring his arm like across his face and throw it, he probably would. I just, I think that there's a whole genre of like Caleb hitting RPOs that are crazy. There'll be a guy crashing down off the edge on him, and then they'll like stop because it's so tough to just pin your ears back and run after Caleb because he can make you miss. So these guys just kind of like stop and try to get into the throwing lane of this RPO and just try to contain him. And Caleb will do literally anything to get it around that guy, and he'll do it accurately. I've seen him like lean way back and throw it sidearm. I've seen him throw it over underhand. I've seen him hit like crazy jump passes. I've seen him do whatever it like if there's an obstacle in front of him, finding some window, some way, somehow to get it around that guy is it's a whole genre with him. And checkdowns too to the flat. Like if he is making something happen, like running around, he's held the ball for a long time, it's not going anywhere, he's getting tackled, like he'll throw it across his body and somehow get it to the check down. And I think some people are like, well, why would I want a quarterback to throw it across his body to a check down? But it's like he just makes the right decisions. It's you just can't quite hem Caleb down ever. And even on the little things, you can see that he's just doing it a little bit better, a little bit differently than what some guys are capable of. And it might get batted with someone else, and then he hits it like between the dude's legs or something. It wouldn't surprise anything that can be accomplished on the football field. It wouldn't surprise me if Caleb did it because he's that kind of athlete. Whereas May is a bit just more traditional, and Caleb has something that I think
there's nothing wrong with that. Like there's nothing like inherently wrong with that. I don't know.
No, it's just that Caleb is a little bit more unique and just different than everybody else. Really, he's not like I feel like with May, I can say he's a little bit like Trevor. He's a little bit like Josh. Like with Caleb, I'm like, I just don't know if I've seen something quite like this before. I think Lamar and Mahomes, and there's a little bit of Josh Allen in him as well. But he's kind of a beast that, with just his willingness and frequency, that he hits trick shots. That
watching Caleb Williams,
maybe Mahomes was
a
the
little
same
bit
way.
Unorthodox because the USC offense it's just so weird. The extent that the hyper RPO play action check down, like the rate at which those plays happen, it's like, come on, do anything else, please.
I think if you're going to question anybody about the fraudulence of USC's offense, it would not be Caleb, but Lincoln Riley.
No, I was thinking the exact same thing. I'm like, this offense is so stale.
It's weird to watch. Just silly mistakes, things that don't make any sense with the route combinations. It certainly feels like they run the offense that they do and don't almost put in practice time. Like they don't have that much of a sense of timing or spacing in their route concepts. And I wonder if they're almost like
USC is just, it's like,
it's
especially
bizarre.
when you watch like maybe like the Penixes or the Bo Nixes or like those like really super high powered offenses that were really, really like quick and well put together. And then you watch USC, it's a total different beast.
Yeah. And maybe it's just because they want to reinvent what offense can be. Like, I wonder if they spend most of their practice time doing out of structure stuff and saying like, we're not going to focus so much on that in structure timing aspect of it and getting like the footwork down right. We're going to focus on other things. And on game day, we just kind of have this machine that can operate without any normal rules. But it's very strange to watch. And I think if they didn't have Caleb, I guess Lincoln has always been putting up these offensive numbers, but if they didn't have Caleb, I do think that he masked a lot of potential bad with USC's offense this year to make them still like the highest scoring team in the nation. Like, the line wasn't pretty. You watch the USC or UCLA game and like how his teammates are selling there, and like Latu is wrecking everybody along the front, and guys are like fumbling, and the game is out of hand before Caleb can even do anything about it, really. And like the Notre Dame game, they go play like a stout obviously not a Big Ten team, an independent team, but a team that kind of plays that sort of style. A Midwest, tough, good defense team. And then all of a sudden, like, the route combinations just look dumb. You know, Caleb is running around and it's still well covered. He was forcing things in that game. But even in that game, I thought, like, he adjusted, and, like, by the end, he looked pretty formidable in that Notre Dame game.
The Utah game is another one where, I mean, there was one play where they have a receiver running what I thought was supposed to be like a deep curl, like a 12-yard curl. Mm-hmm. And then he starts, and I think that's what Caleb was expecting, was him to settle at that 12 back to 10. And then he starts to shade inside, and Caleb throws it where he would have stopped if it was a curl, and it ends up being behind him. And it like, oh, is that a bad throw by Caleb? But it's just like, there's just no sense of timing here. There's another play where the running back just like randomly drops the football and fumbles it. And it's just like, come on.
Yeah, I think it was kind of just a unserious. And they kept Alex Grinch around. So it's like Caleb needs to be putting up 50. Otherwise, they're going to lose every big game.
And that's the other thing. You look at some of their losses. It's like 52-40. Come on, Caleb.
Yeah,
I know.
How did he not win that game, man?
I just would love to see him play a normal football game. And I feel like we were robbed of that in college. It just... I don't see why he couldn't do it and like be very good, because he doesn't get scared of pressure. Like, he runs around, but he's not like, oh no, I'm like, there's a guy to my right, I have to bail. Like, he'll kind of hit a throw and keep his eyes downfield in those situations. Like, it doesn't cause him to lose all accuracy or like lose his head or whatever. He definitely... I do think he kind of fades away from pressure sometimes. Like, he won't step into the throw. He'll try to like hit the like drop back sidearm, like weird mechanic shit. But he does that even when he's not under pressure. So like, and he's accurate from these different angles and stuff. So sometimes I'll see a clip of him like under some pressure, and he'll like step back to avoid it and like throw it sidearm. And it's like, Caleb is scared to step into the pressure. And it's like, maybe he is, but like, that's kind of how he always plays. Like, he'll do that when he's not under pressure. And it's like, yeah, he missed a tough throw in that situation, but even guys who throw it normally and do step into it, like some of these pocket passer guy, like media analysts want them to do, like they're prone to missing throws when they're pressured. So I don't have too many major concerns about Caleb. I think that he does have some Lamar in him, where he's got kind of this unorthodox style. He loves to throw it sidearm. He loves to run around, extend plays. But Lamar doesn't give a shit about pressure and when it's closing in, right? Like, he continues to go through his read. And at the end of the day, even if the pocket is really constricted, he's not afraid to almost jump up into the air and get it off from the pocket. Yeah, I've seen him do stuff like that.
Seen it plenty of times.
I think Caleb has that in him. I think that he has it in him to use his playmaking ability to win from the pocket. And even if the space gets condensed, I think Caleb can still be comfortable. And I think that he will project to the league. And I'm not worried about his personality. I think...
Oh, man. That stuff is just so stupid, obviously. You know, he's painting his nails. Who cares? Who cares?
Yeah. And
I think we've already talked about that before. That stuff is just...
Yeah. And, like, I don't know. I get that the thing about crying in the stands after the Washington game was kind of a strange image. I can't even lie about that. I've never quite seen it before, but I don't think that anybody, like, if he's good, I don't think anyone will care. And if he's bad, then maybe people will care. But the main problem would be in that case that he's bad. You know,
I don't know. I mean, exactly. If anything, he's just passionate. I mean, I'd rather have that than what was it Trevor Lawrence said, that he could care, like, if he doesn't pan out in football, he'll be fine. Like,
I don't mind that from Lawrence either. I just think as long as you're authentically yourself, people aren't gonna, like, I think your real problem is if you're like a total fake one. And I think Caleb is like, no matter what people say about him, no matter like what kind of reception it's going to get in the media, like, he'll go do it. And I think people can respect that. Again, if you're winning games, right? Everything's all good when you're winning games, but then that comes down to the talent evaluation. And then I think you got to remember that, like, Caleb is going to be playing with younger and younger guys. Like, if this was 2000s football, and there were a bunch of Gen Xers in the league, like maybe they wouldn't listen to Caleb Williams. But like that's not going to be the culture of the league forever. I think like as more younger generation people come into football, it is going to be more normalized that like a quarterback might act the way a 20-year-old guy would act. I don't know. I think that it's just a different culture. If guys wear their emotions on their sleeve more, it is more frequent. And I think old heads care, but eventually there's not going to be that many old heads.
It really comes down. He's either going to be good or he's not.
Right.
Whether or not he paints his nails is not going to be the difference in a Super Bowl for any team. I can promise you that, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I'm not concerned about any of that stuff. So yeah, he's my QB1. He has a chance to be a very, very unique weapon, but May is number 2.
So that's the question. Do we all have May as 2 then?
Yeah. Daniel's guys.
Yeah, it's a little bit more of a conversation than I thought it would be. At least online, I've seen some people raising the question. And, Daniel's had a great year. But for me, it's May. I just think the number of throws across the field that he's hitting, the arm talent, the legs, the whole thing. Like, he's pretty darn prototypical. And the big negative on him, which is probably like, maybe he's a little bit too aggressive, I think. Like, that's where a lot of his bad stuff comes in. Like, I think sometimes he'll sit in the pocket a little bit longer than he should.
Yeah.
And I think, he tries to hit tough throws, but
yeah,
that's a good negative to have, to be 100% honest with
you.
Because for every guy like
style,
that, right. For every guy like that, there's 10 guys where it's like, well, this dude just doesn't attempt throwing into tight windows or throwing with anticipation. And it's like, well, that isn't going to work at the next level. So, and on top of that, making some mistakes, throwing some turnovers because you're being aggressive is not nearly as big a negative as it seems, right? Interceptions are bad down the field or whatever, but really, a 3-and-out because you checked it down, followed by a punt isn't really that much better.
Right.
So I'm a big fan of May. I feel really good about him. I feel really good about both these top 2 guys.
Yeah, they look like franchise changers. I think another concern I would put with May is the release. He is a bit slow with the release. I think it kind of loops and goes way back. If we're measuring quickness of release of these top guys, May's actually might be the slowest.
Of the top 3, Theo?
Of everybody we talk about today.
What I'll say is that he's very good at throwing while he's getting hit, so it doesn't matter. He'll be okay.
True.
It'll work out anyway.
True.
It's not
and he's
unfair.
tall, so it's like it's not really going to get things batted so much.
Hopefully,
like
it's a fair criticism.
Some people care about it way more. I bet you Sims will talk about it. He's always a bit of a release stickler. But maybe if you've been in a QB room, like I get that, like it taking longer, the zone defenders can react a little faster. Guys might be able to get their hands up. It's a game of inches, and throws that could have been there a couple feet ago are like lagging behind.
That's true.
It does matter to some extent, but I just can't bring myself to care about the long release when like everything else that May is doing,
everything
and he has
is just so
the
good.
Facilities to make up for it. Like he slides around the pocket so well. He's not someone who is like, oh, first read is gone. I'm straight up running. I'm like getting up over 8 miles an hour and like creating a running throw situation. I can step up. I can he's more efficient with his pocket movements than Caleb. Like Caleb will definitely start to run around. He's just so good at running around that I don't care. But May like could be dealing with the same sort of pressure and really like just take one step into the right spot and the guy overshoots him barely. Like it's super nice to watch. And he can take off and he's fast as fuck. Like he's fast.
He really is, yeah.
He's sneaky athletic.
He is like I don't know. He's like 6'4" and like he has kind of that longer release. So maybe the reputation is he would be a bit lumbering, but he can make people miss. He can burn you around the edge. Like he's a crazy athlete. I saw someone say like, oh, the problem is with all the Josh Allen comps is we assign an average athlete the Josh Allen comp when Josh is the best athlete in the NFL. And it's like Drake May is maybe not as good of an athlete as Allen, but like he is not an average athlete or even above average athlete. Like he is a freak. I do think I think Trevor Lawrence isn't a bad comp for him, and we like Trevor Lawrence here. I think Allen isn't a bad comp for him. Herbert, that tall, like pocket passer. I think Cam was a little bit more like this than people think. Like he was a tall pocket passer. He wanted to slide around and make throws from muddy pockets too. Like he wasn't a pure runner as much as he was.
Cam loves standing strong in the pocket.
Yes, he was a pocket passer, which people don't. I think people think of him as a runner, but
there's good examples of both of the things you're talking about, Theo, in the game against Clemson. There's one play where I don't remember who it was. There's a free rusher off the left side, and a lot of guys, they see that. And when I was watching JJ McCarthy, I saw a very similar instance where McCarthy felt an instant pressure off the right, and he like ducks and bails so fast.
Yeah.
But with May, he just trots, and all he's waiting for, because he knows he has a crosser coming on the backside. He's like, well, I can't come back left, so I'm just going to wait for this crosser to break. And as soon as I see he has leverage, I'm letting that shit fly. And that's exactly what he does. But then there's another play where that long release comes in, and he has a dig break open, but he pulls back and he sees the interior lineman jump up to try and bat it. But because of how long his release is, it takes him a long time to come all the way back and cycle back through that release, and it ends up getting batted out of his arm by the edge guy coming around. So there's pros and cons there.
Yeah, I don't know. He's not perfect. Another thing that is a weakness with him is just his stats. And I think that's where a lot of the bad press on him comes. Because if you look at his numbers next to Daniels looks way better. Like Daniels was way more efficient. Daniels had the rushing numbers that were crazy. Like it factors in when, like, that's a good way to get huge efficiency numbers, is be that good at running the football. But I just think that May, their passing offense stats, like we say, and May, once Josh Downs left, like him and Josh Downs cooked. Everybody else on that team was a little especially when you look at the guys that Oregon has and Michigan has
and Washington
and USC has
and
even
LSU has,
and Washington and LSU definitely. Yeah. So the stats just don't match up. And I watched some bad box score games from May, and Clemson is one of them. And you watch that game, and you still see so many good traits that he has.
And he's not even one of his worst games. I don't think there's any question about that. And even then, it's like, he's clearly one of the best players on the field here. And yes, he missed some throws, but there was also some accurate deep balls that didn't get caught. Yes. And like there was a lot of good on display in that game. So it's when I start to get impressed with the bad box score games, then like, okay, this guy's pretty legit, right? Because he gets the not his fault stamp, and it is possible.
Just like Herbert,
his comp is Herbert, man. His comp is Herbert.
We love to see it.
Yeah, I think I agree. And as far as the stats go, I think putting up big numbers and competing for the Heisman as a quarterback is a team award. We've talked about it on here before. You got to be in the high-powered offense. You got to have the great receivers, and you got to be winning games. Williams and May maybe weren't in the competition the same way that Daniels, Nix, and Penix were. But like, I'm sorry, I have no doubt in my mind, if you put like Michael Penix on North Carolina and you put Drake May on Washington, who's going to have the better numbers? Almost certainly Drake May, right? And that's not a knock on Penix necessarily. It's just like, it's just tough to put up those counting stats, and you've just got to have the team be good. It's a lot that goes into it, man.
Yeah. I mean, we got.
Although I guess Neighbors
gets Odell comps, and Adunze gets Fitzgerald comps, and it's like, who is? And then we watch like Tez Walker from USC hit the or UNC,
They're from
UNC
yeah.
hit the Senior Bowl, and we find out that he can't like run a comeback route. Like,
so it's
levels, and
it's just
may put up about as good as stats as you can put up. Like his stats were not bad. I think in kind of a tough situation. So I think that May is super legit.
We need to get him on a high-powered receiver offense with a terrible defense, and he'll be competing for that Heisman. I promise you that, man.
So yeah, we have Drake May at UNC while Kyle McCord got to rock it up at Ohio State, man.
That's very sick stuff.
This episode of Stay Hot is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. They are the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy. It's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you just pick more or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types are what makes Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. And they also now offer Apple Pay for quick and easy deposits into your account this football season. A couple weeks ago, I hit a big one on Prize Picks with my Browns versus Jets play with Njoku and Flacco and Breece Hall, and you can too. So head on over to Prize Picks, use the code STAYHOT, and they will double your first deposit, or prizepicks.com/stayhot and use code STAYHOT for a first deposit match up to $100. So what are you waiting for? Head on over there.
I want to go ahead and talk to you about something that's been a game changer for me, and it just might be for you as well. Let's chat about Every Plate, your ticket to affordable and delicious meals. Now, you've probably heard about meal kits, but let me tell you, Every Plate takes it to a whole new level. Picture this. For just $1.49 per meal, you get incredible recipes delivered right to your doorstep. And here's the kicker. Add a 10-ounce ranch steak to your weekly order for just $1 per box. Yes, $1 steaks for life. That's raising the stakes for dinner, my friends. And speaking of saving, Every Plate is America's best value meal kit. I was a bit skeptical at first, thinking, meal kits might break the bank, but guess what? Every Plate's meals are cheaper than your average fast casual meal. So you can save big and still enjoy fresh, satisfying meals. I took that extra money I saved and I treated myself to something special. But here's the real game changer for me, the variety. With over 25 tasty and affordable recipes that change weekly, you'll never get bored. Breakfast 24/7, 15 minutes or less meals, feel-good food, and big batch faves. They've got it all. And let's not forget the sides with breakfast items, lunches, snacks, desserts, and more. Now here's the scoop. Get started with Every Plate for just $1.49 per meal plus $1 steaks for life. Head to everyplate.com/podcast and enter the code 49STAYHOT. Remember, your subscription must be active to qualify for that $1 steak. That's up to $110 in value. I've genuinely loved my experience with Every Plate, and I know you will too. So let's sizzle into the new year with delicious, affordable meals. Head to everyplate.com/podcast and use the code 49STAYHOT and make your 2024 your tastiest year yet.
Steph Curry makes you believe that you can do anything. I mean, look at me. He has me believing that I can shoot threes when I play pickup basketball. And the Curry 11s are specifically designed with ultimate bounce, grip, and stability to allow everyone to do their thing. New generations of ball players are coming up and showing the basketball world that the old rules do not apply. The future is exciting, fast, positive, and hungry. This NBA season, rock your favorite player and rep his shoes on and off the court. The Curry 11s are perfect for both the committed and casual ballers. The UA Warp Tech makes the shoe feel like it was designed for your feet, locked in no matter what you do on the court. Stop in your tracks with dual density UA Flow cushioning and traction, an emergency brake that you don't even notice. Steph's 11th signature shoe steps into the second decade of his sneaker career, pulling colorway inspiration from the wonders of a positive and modernized future on and off the court. Take these kicks with you when you leave the scrimmage and rep UA wherever you go. Do your thing. Change the game. The Curry 11 Future Curry is available now at currybrand.com. So we have seen the future, and it's Caleb #1, May #2 in the draft. We have seen mock drafts that have a different result. We do not buy it. But Jaden Daniels is getting very high praise in the media right now.
Yes.
I've seen him second overall plenty. It's probably not the most frequent thing if you were to take the averages, but you start to see it a good amount now.
It's not like a total fringe opinion. There's definitely some people talking about it.
We got to talk. Conversations are being had. Is he QB2? We don't see him as that. How is he? Let's talk about him versus JJ McCarthy now, which is typically the battle for QB3. It seems like. Do we have JJ or Daniels or somebody else?
I have Daniels.
I
also have Daniels.
Man.
We know how this goes. All right, we'll start to disagree come 4 and 5. I'm sure.
I thought maybe. I think I'm very interested to have our JJ McCarthy conversation, but let's talk about Daniels here for a second.
But yeah,
I'm not totally sold on him as a top 10 guy.
Yeah, I
I'll
get
say
that. I guess my concern is like, really it's the sacks. Over his last couple of years, he's taken, like, his pressure to sack rate is really bad. And if you're taking a lot of sacks, it's really hard to be a good quarterback. Right. I think it's one of the single most important things. And he has not done a great job about it. On top of that, he only put up like one season of really like NFL level tape when he was 23 years old. And it's like, that just makes you a little bit nervous. I like a lot of his stuff. Like, he's obviously just like a great runner. He's got a big arm. Some of the shots that he hits down the sideline, like, I know you don't value those as much, but I mean, bomb touchdowns, I don't care where they're thrown. I'm afraid. I just think that's so cool. I do. But I think I see the tools there, and I think he's absolutely worthy of a first round draft pick, but the dealing with pressure stuff is bad, man. And that usually doesn't get better, and it usually translates. It's just,
I just don't think he's going to be a very high level NFL decision maker. I know that he doesn't throw a ton of picks in college. But I see the hits that he takes, and he does take some bad ones. There are three. There are a couple. There are a couple that get shown over and over. The one against Ole Miss. Go ahead.
He takes the worst hits of any quarterback I have ever seen by a wide margin. He takes the worst hits of maybe any player ever. Like, worse than a running back, bro.
Worse than Stafford.
Pound for pound.
Pound for pound. Like, that guy gets obliterated.
He's built like me.
Most
I've met
of
him.
the time, bro. And that's the thing. It's like, I think one of the most interesting discussions this year is like, how much of a problem is this? Because he gets clobbered and he's smaller. Do you think he can play through like full seasons year after year after year? I think there's like no way, unless you can. The thing is, you could hypothetically be like, dude, stop, and maybe he will. And maybe he'll start sliding. But like, shouldn't they have told him that at LSU? And if they did he not listen? Like, it's really bad, bro.
And my question is, like, how much of that is also his rushing superpower? Because you watch JJ McCarthy, and he's a pretty quick dude. Like, he's fast, but he's also not going to take those kinds of hits as often. He'll get down, he'll protect himself a little bit more.
I've seen,
but like, he'll go down smartly, and I'll be
yards to the sideline.
Right. And it's like, I bet Jaden Daniels would not have dove headfirst there, and he may have taken a hit, but he probably would have picked up like an extra 10 yards or something if he just like tried to keep running and burn the angle and break a tackle. So it's like, that is he's got to find a balance, because on one hand, I think it's kind of what makes him so special as a runner is like how long he keeps these plays alive. And he has unlimited stamina. It's crazy. Like, he's so fast, so late into the play, and everybody else will kind of be like visibly slowing down, waiting for him to like go down, and he's just like cutting back again.
Yeah.
Like trying to run across the field.
He's a Looney Tunes character,
shit,
bro. He'll run around, and then he'll have like the anvil fall in his head or whatever, man. But it picks up 22 yards.
It does. And I'll never forget also when Jalen Carter picked him up and carried him around. He's got some Jameis in him, I feel like. I feel like when he comes into the league, there's going to be that sense of like, okay, he's had some big plays over the course of this game, but there's a couple only Jaden moments where maybe he takes a hit, fumbles the ball, like tries to hurdle someone, he's knocked out of the game, and we'll be like, of course it's Daniels, dude. That's like, of course, man. This is happening to him. So
he's taking these big hits in college. You're gonna get to the NFL. These hits are gonna get bigger, man.
Yeah, and like, just the silly moments are gonna amplify, and because the games will all be close, right? Yes. So if he does fumble or does, get knocked out, or I don't know, like, I know that he avoided the interceptions, but I just think you can see it in his running style that he has got, just the silliness to him, the
dude.
And he's not the whimsical turnover,
and he's hurdle up the middle is one of his best plays ever. That's the funniest shit because it didn't work like at all. Like he got clobbered, man, trying to do that. But that happens to him. Those things happen to him. Like he takes those hits and it doesn't change him at all. He's still going out next game and doing the same stuff.
Next game, it's the next drive, man. What are you talking about?
It's the next play, bro. And I can't stress enough. Like it's more of his hits than not, more of his runs than not end up with him getting clobbered. It's like above 50%, no exaggeration. It is bizarre, man.
Yes. So I think that he is got some things that will, and he also doesn't really throw it over the middle a whole lot. Like he's accurate, but he loves the go ball. He loves to throw it down the sideline or take off. I've seen him turn down open digs over the middle. I don't think that he's going to be just a surgeon there. But he is very accurate down the field, and he's very accurate overall. And on the run, he's accurate. I just don't think that he's going to be...
It's sounding like a Fields-ish profile, to be 100% real with you, man.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. It's like
Fields took some nasty hits in college.
Fields took a lot of big hits, yeah. And he had a good arm and was accurate, but maybe was a little bit more limited in what he did. And it's like you're worried about him dealing with pressure. It's like, well, that's kind of Fields' problem too. And he's talented and he's worthwhile taking a shot on, and you never know how the development's going to work out or if you put him in a better situation. That's why I still think he should be like a first-round pick type guy. But there's some pretty major concerns there, I think.
Especially if he goes to a team like the Patriots, like with a bad offensive line and a bad receiving group. It's like, man, what can he really do there? Like, is he going to be just cooking down the field like he was? I don't know. I don't think he's any kind of can't miss prospect. I think he's exciting. I think he can create big plays for you. I think as he gets older, like if he's in a good offense, you saw him. He does take care of the football, and he does, create it. And I love quarterbacks who can run. Like I think that'll just shoot your efficiency up on that play because you can attach an option to everything. Like it just is so good for you. So I love that. I think that if he took over the Patriots offense, it would be like better than Mac Jones, definitely. Like I think that it would be if he took over. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think. The Vikings. I would be very excited to see him with the Vikings. Like, man, you get him with a decent offensive line in front of him, and like Justin Jefferson. Like Justin Jefferson could hit a ton of yards with Jane Daniels, like 1,700, and Jordan. I think he could keep his efficiency if he got to throw to Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. He would add his own on the ground. Like you could drop back and throw it a lot. I do think that could work, but
be a nasty fit.
It would be even better with Caleb, and it would be even better with May, I think. And
Minnesota,
I don't know if he could put a whole team on his back like potentially those guys could. And I always think there'll be a bit more silliness.
He's also pretty old, man.
Yeah, he's been in college a long time.
He's not the only one in this class that's been in college a long time.
No, he is not.
I just don't think he feels the game like Caleb and May. I just don't think that he has that kind of special sense, I guess. But it is there a little bit with him, and I think that he could be fun. But to me, he's more like, I gave him a 2nd round grade, like, and you could probably bump that up, but I feel like with some of these guys,
positional value.
If you're taking them in the top 10, you're staking your like in kind of entire reputation as a GM on them. And he's not that to me. And so I feel like you got to take him when the risk is a little lower. Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
later first,
I think I agree.
second.
I do like him though, and I'm excited to watch him. I'll put it like that. I'm really pumped to watch him.
I think he's going to be fun.
And I would be very surprised if he came in and it was like he wasn't at least showing flashes early, and then maybe it doesn't pan out when it's all said and done. But I think he could add some juice to an offense.
Theo's comp I like a lot. I think that's pretty spot on. So we all know the first three quarterbacks all the same. So Theo, do you have McCarthy at 4? Is that
no?
Okay. So that's what I was wondering, because you were saying McCarthy versus Daniels. Who do you have at 4?
Penix.
I have Bo Nix.
Okay.
I also like Bo Nix a decent amount.
So you've got Bo Nix at 4 then?
Yeah, I got Bo Nix at 4.
Okay.
Yeah. I think there's a lot that makes me nervous about Penix, man. The injury stuff is like really horribly bad. Penix is like not a comfortable runner at all because of it. And then, he's an older prospect, which I guess Nix is too. I don't think he has some like supercharged arm either. Like maybe I'd say it's probably NFL average. He didn't take a lot of sacks, so that was pretty good. Although neither did Bo Nix. Neither of those guys took nearly anything. I think Bo Nix had like 5 sacks the entire season, which is partially because their offense was
getting the ball out extremely quickly. Tons of quick game where he would just hit the top of his drop and dump it into the flat or dump it to a hitch that is basically impossible to defend if they box out, right? Yeah. And that's
it's worth noting Bo Nix almost never got pressure. Like among the big quarterbacks that we'll talk, his
pressure to sack was fantastic.
Yeah, I mean it's really
it was good for a lot of his career, I believe. I could be wrong, but I don't know. I just think with Penix, like he's not wildly accurate. He's not necessarily like a perfect decision maker, although he's pretty good. He doesn't have a big time arm. There's an injury history. He's older. I'm just a little bit lower on him.
Yeah, I agree with the injury history. I do like his arm though. I think that he's the best pocket passer of the rest. I do think that when he gets back there, he can read out like NFL concepts from left all the way to right. Hit throws down the field, like pretty accurate down the field. He doesn't really throw over the middle too much, which worries me. I don't think that he's quite the layerer. I'm not like crazy high on any of these guys, and he doesn't deal with pressure the best. like when it comes to, he can make the first guy miss a little bit. At this
point, most of them don't.
But I think that's like a pocket passer where it's like there's a lot of limitations. Otherwise, he's older and he's not hitting over the middle a ton. It's like I would rather personally take a shot on a guy like a Nix, who I think is a little bit better of an overall athlete, who also doesn't really challenge the middle a ton, but maybe you feel like you can work towards a little bit more there. Or a McCarthy, who it's like, he's probably super raw, but give me the younger guy who I know has upside, I think, over Penix.
Yeah.
That Texas game looked dang good, man. But then he followed it up with the Michigan one. But then like his ribs were hurt. So I don't know what to make of all that.
Yeah.
The Texas game was impressive. It really was. It was a little bit of a Stroud-esque kind of performance where he was making guys miss.
He won. It's like, what if Stroud had then went and, blew it to like TCU in the national title after that or something? I would.
The Michigan game, I wish he kept his cool a little bit more. But I don't know. I just think he has the most traits and sees the game the best from back there. Like he understands coverages, understands the leverages, just understands the NFL type concepts, and really no offense was more opened up, and they put a lot on his plate. Although I do think that there were also like so many deep balls that was a little unsustainable. So maybe it's not the safest bet, but I don't know. I think that these other guys have kind of the same problems.
Maybe. The big thing for Bo Nix with me is he kind of has the Jalen Hurts stamp a little bit. People used to call him Bo Picks back at Auburn, and now he's, statistically like avoiding negative plays at the highest rate in college football. I don't know, man.
That's kind of why I mean, sort of why I like Nix, not necessarily the improvement aspect of it, although he has. But just sort of like, I like the way that he maneuvers the pocket a lot. I think he's a really good balance of aggressive, of willingness to step up, but also willingness to like get out of the pocket. I think his like on the field feel for that type of stuff is really good. And then, yeah, he's older, which is why he's like quarterback 4. And why I'm not like, you should draft this guy like 8 or 7 or whatever. But if you wanted to think, I thought with some of the pro style stuff, like he did pretty solid. It wasn't a ton of it, I won't lie. How many goes and slants did he throw? And like his average depth of target was hilariously low.
Yeah.
But I'm not necessarily going to ding him a ton for like, okay, well, he's got a million RPOs and screens to throw if he looked pretty solid on some of the other stuff. So I don't know. I was a decent fan of him. Maybe I'd even think of having JJ over him just for the concept of like, I want somebody who's younger, who I feel like maybe has a little bit more of a path to development. But I like Nix, and he does have fun. I've realized that there's a lot of truth to that. I was watching, I think, him against Washington State, and like they sent him out on like a double pass, like, and they threw it up to him even though he was like completely covered. And then later in that game, he just like punts the ball. He does like a little pooch punt. He's having fun out there, man. He's a dark horse for Heisman. So I liked Nix a decent amount. I'm not super like high on him, I guess, in the sense where I'm like, standing up on the table and saying this guy is for sure a franchise quarterback. But I think there's a lot of teams that would be more interesting for drafting either him or honestly, like JJ or even Penix, rather than just sort of running it back with what they've got. And out of those 3, Nix is my favorite.
Yeah. I think that there is some interest with him. He hit some crazy throws versus Utah. He hit a whole shot down the field that was nice. Threw over the middle a couple times in tight windows on Diggs. That was good to see. He's tall. He can move. He can. You have that element of creativity, and he's able to run the football. So, yeah, definitely a lot to like. I did think the offense was pretty easy, though. These RPO guys, same thing with like Matt Corral and like Howell. These aren't.
Don't talk about my boy like that.
It's just not.
I guess I get it. Yeah,
it's not as tangible as what I saw from the Penix offense, and like, okay, this just looks a little harder, and it looks a little bit more pro style, and I can just envision it a little bit more. And it's like, man, this guy stunk, and then he got old and got in an offense that, didn't ask a whole lot of him, and he's like putting up these crazy numbers. But I'm like, I wonder if Lanning is the guy I'd rather have than his quarterback. Whereas with DeBoer and Penix, I don't know. I'm like, I think a little bit more of this is on Penix and like what he can do. And then you get to Michigan and you get to JJ McCarthy. So
yeah.
I'm debating between Nix and McCarthy for 5.
I mean, I like Nix a little bit better, but like I'm really thinking, like, honestly, if these are like day 2 guys and you're taking them as a project, maybe the play is just to take the guy who's younger, who's got a little bit more like long-term upside, where it's like if a guy's coming in at 23 and you're worried that like, they're not like ready to run like a pro style offense like Nix, which I think is it's like, is that just going to be the worst play? Is that just a worse dice roll than it is on McCarthy? I don't know. I think for what it's worth, I hate to defend him. I think for what it's worth, when McCarthy did throw, which granted, they ran a lot, it was more pro style stuff. It was not super, super phony all the time.
No, he liked to put it down the field, and there was a lot of like flood concepts and, with those intermediate routes, a lot of crossers. I think in a Shanahan style offense, JJ McCarthy could really cook. Maybe I'll put him 5th over Bo Nix. I think that
I thought, Theo, I was prepared for you to have Hartman on this list.
No, God, no. I think Hartman has some main character energy, and like I watched his game versus Duke,
Hartman's
and he hit
more
some
of a Felipe Franks level of.
Okay, lovable.
Hartman is my guy in that I just think that he'll just somehow be relevant. Like he's too handsome
really mean
to fail.
Like guy, not player.
I kind of like him as a player. Like I see sometimes he like will be really like stand up in the pocket and like hit the backside dig. It'll be mixed in with some absolutely atrocious decisions, but I'm like, I could just see this dude coming in as a backup and like charming as and like as a day 3 quarterback. Like I think he'll stick around. I don't know. I'm like he just seems like a backup I'd like to have.
Okay, because
I don't know.
You were texting in the group chat. I think you maybe put out some tweets like, "Yo, Hartman might kind of be nice."
Look, there were some times where I was watching Joe. Look, what really happened as I was watching Joe Alt, and there were enough times where I was like, "Man, Sam Hartman is really shallow in the pocket." Like stood up and hit something in structure. Like,
yeah,
I was impressed by those plays enough while watching Alt, where I was like, "Fuck it, I like the quarterback." and then it's Sam Hartman, who already is like one of the main characters of college football.
Yeah.
Again, maybe it's because he's just attractive. Maybe this is pretty privileged.
I mean, leave in the comments down below if you think Sam Hartman's hot.
Everyone will look at him, dude. I mean, he's like,
I know, man.
He's almost like a Ryan Gosling type character for a football fan. Like he just looks like
who is hotter?
Meme
who is
with
hotter,
the jawline?
Sam Hartman or Jalen Hurts?
I don't want to have this conversation, man. They're both good-looking guys. I'm not ranking them. I'm not rating them out of 10. I'm just acknowledging. That's all it has to be. It doesn't have to be a game.
This is why
maybe it's
JJ
pretty
McCarthy
privileged.
Is our 5th best quarterback in the 2024 NFL draft.
I guess, yeah.
Matt, do you have McCarthy at 5?
I don't.
Okay, so
over Penix.
Yeah, over Penix. Dude, the injury stuff with Penix is like really bad.
It's rough.
He'll be fine.
What do you mean?
NFL scouts across the country are telling themselves it's no biggie.
I watched him in Michigan. That wasn't his greatest game, but he was toughing it out, man. He was like wincing in pain after every. I'm like, this guy will play through it.
I guess he's the next Matt Stafford.
Maybe.
So, JJ McCarthy. Anyway, finally talking about him. Everybody's QB5. There is some Rodgers to him. I think that he's almost like a more formidable Zach Wilson as a prospect, whereas like
what
some of the questions
I like that.
I think they're both like Rodgers admirers, I think, and when you're taking them high in the draft, that's probably the vision you have in your head. You get this kind of this arm strength guy, even though he's kind of smaller and very good out of structure, right? Like hitting the crazy throws on the move, like accurate on the move. I don't know. Just that's probably, I would imagine like if you're taking Zach Wilson too, that's like kind of who you're hoping he becomes, right? I can't imagine who else it would be. But same thing with McCarthy. I think if you really squint, you can see it. And he is really accurate on the move. And he does have kind of a big arm, like some of the throws he makes. I was like, man, he really put some heat on that thing. So I could maybe see him as an upside guy, but I just don't think that he's as smart as Rodgers is at all. And that is where what you have to remember is like on some plays, he really does look like he's special, but I just don't think he's as smart as he needs to be.
He's
making reads.
He's also not as good under pressure, and I think that's
just not
very apparent.
But
I liked his athletic tools, and I liked that he was aggressive, and I liked that he's younger. And I think that combo of things, if he wanted to like go somewhere and sit a year, which I think is what should happen for him, I think that could turn out well. So that's why I have him at 5. I feel like he's a totally valid, little bit more of a project guy.
The Lions will love him.
He is athletic. He is quick. His acceleration is really notable. Like when he takes off to run, I feel like he can kind of get skinny and take off. And like some of these openings he fits through, like other guys would have gotten tracked down there. And again, I really like his accuracy on the move. I really think that when he gets his feet going and like he can dive a little bit, like if there was one guy from this draft class who could pull off kind of like the diving, throwing, again, Mahomesy, Burrowy stuff, it really, I mean, it would be Caleb, I guess, but he's up there, man. Like on the move. I know Lance Zierlein tweeted a stat that his completion percentage throwing on the run was like 70% or something like that. I'm like, man, you can really see it with some of these throws. And when he kind of takes, I think he sees the game through a little bit of a straw sometimes and gets like too locked in on one thing that he wants to do. But a lot of times that thing is like the alert, like the post, and it'll be one-on-one with the safety, and he will just bomb that shit. Like he really is aggressive. And on those throws, he can, if he gives his guy a chance, good things can happen. But I just don't know if he goes through his reads like he needs to. I don't know if he like is quite as accurate as like the top guys in the class. Like I don't think he's, I don't know. He's not quite Caleb as a playmaker, and I don't know. I think he gets too locked in on kind of one thing that he wants to do over the course of the play, and it's not like all things are available to him.
Right.
And I don't think he's like, I don't know. It's tough to judge their skill set like before the line of scrimmage, like before the play, but it didn't seem like Harbaugh let him have like a crazy.
It is a really difficult thing to judge. I agree. I'm always trying to figure out exactly what's down with that, but yeah, I think he's perfectly fair 5. I don't know if I was put a first round pick on him, but
no, I think you'd really have to be like, man, he's so smart. Like he's so good reading the field. Like if you're, or he could be. And I just think about him in the league, and I don't think that he'll be a special decision maker and like before the snap having like the pure mastery that he needs to. I think if he goes high, it could be a very Baker Mayfield-y type of career, where like some seasons it's good, but in other seasons he's not doing much.
I could see it, but yeah,
those are the top 5 quarterbacks, and no one is allowed to argue with us at all. And if you do, no, you're wrong. Yeah, so we'll do these, along. We've been doing some team not rebuild, but like team blueprint type stuff as well. So we'll keep doing that, keep doing these like prospect rankings as well, as we get closer to free agency and then of course closer to the draft. But I appreciate you all tuning into this episode. We'll be back with some more content your way very, very shortly. But until then, we will catch you on the flippity flop.